It's 7:45 this morning. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, how are you, lads?
Yeah, look, we'll talk about Ireland in just a couple of minutes' time, but I did want to get your perception on where we're at with Munster at the moment, because it must be pretty exciting for Munster fans when they see the quality of young players coming through and they see the quality of players coming back from injury. So with Carberry back, with Snyman thereabouts, there is like really this bubbling sense that it's Munster's time.
Yeah, I think, look, there's a sense of excitement there. I think Joey Carberry being back is fantastic for Munster, and it's getting him started now and playing in the next couple of weeks in the last couple of rounds of the Pro 14. You know, they've made the final now, so there's a little bit of pressure off on them. It was a great game on Friday night. I think it was a good win for Munster. Great try from Mike Haley, and I think unfortunately for Connacht, it was highly unlikely they were going to catch Munster anyway. But it was probably as good as, you know, strong a team as Andy Friend could have picked for Connacht, and Munster are missing a few. So their depth and that mentality and that resilience about getting that result was really important for them. I think if they'd lost that game, it would have dented confidence. It keeps that feel-good factor in the team going ahead for the last couple of rounds. And obviously the final with Leinster, that's the big one. You know, I think will Snyman be back? It's highly unlikely. He'll be back for that final. If they were to get him back in any form, it would be incredible. We saw videos of him running last week, but Johan van Gran was playing down the fact that he was out doing straight line running. So if they had him back, it would be an incredible boost for him. But a lot of the young players are playing well, as you say, and I think they'll really fancy their chances now. And to get the job done on Friday and know now that they're in a final, I think the problem they have is, and Leinster will have the same problem, is with their international players. You know, they play Scotland, England, and then they've got to get ready for a Pro 14 final, and then the week after they've got the last 16 of the European Champions Cup. So if all those players play the internationals, it's 4 weeks in the trot, and that's probably not going to happen. So unfortunately, we're probably going to see some of the internationals missing from that final.
Are we starting to see the impact of the coaching ticket changes on the Munster team now as more frontline players become available and as the systems bed in? Are we starting to see that, and also the weather gets a little bit better, that the style of play that Munster have embraced is very different from what it was 18 months or even 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's we've seen glimpses of it this season. They're still not probably as clinical as they need to be to win a final. They've got to put all that together in the final and deliver, because I think the biggest problem I've had is in those Leinster games in the last couple of seasons, they've come up short and they haven't taken those opportunities or chances. So we've certainly seen glimpses of the attack and the execution being better, passes sticking, and a bit more variety in their game. But you know, the test will be in a couple of weeks. I think it's fine doing it in round league games in the Pro 14. They did it in Clermont. You know, they did. Their attack was brilliant, but they still come up short in some games, and they're not where they probably need to be. Obviously, you've got to put that together in a final now against Leinster, and if they do that, then they'll take the next step. But there's certainly there's optimism there and belief that, you know, they have tried to change it. So I think the attack approach has been much better. It's not that they've become this team that are really expansive all the time. They still kick a lot. They're still pragmatic in their approach, but I think their attack seems to be more variety in the attack. Even when players are carrying the ball forwards and stuff like that, they're running good lines, trade lines, dummy lines, and the timing and the execution is much better. So, like I said, they've got to put that together in a final for all of us or people on the outside to say they've taken it to another level. But I think the attack has been much better, for sure.
A couple of moments where the line out looked a bit unsteady on Friday. Jack Carty caused a few moments of trouble with a few kicks in behind. Did Connacht expose a couple of areas for Munster to work on over the next couple of weeks?
It's probably a personnel issue as well, and sometimes when your line-out unravels, I think you certainly can't do that in the final. In the big games, or you will pay a heavy price. 7 lineouts to lose on Friday night was way too much, and that's an area that they've got to really get right. I think there was timing issues, overthrows, and Connacht were really good in it putting pressure on Munster, and that's a concern for sure. Tyke Byrne will come back into the side. Klein didn't start the game. So there's probably a little bit of inexperience in Wycherley. Billy Holland is very, very experienced, but some of the execution was really poor, and that will cost you. You lose 2 or 3 lineouts in a game, that can cost you in a tight game. They won't get away with that in the final. So certainly that's an area that they've got to improve on. And the challenge for both sides will be getting their internationals back in and how they play them and who do they integrate back into the side. But I think for Munster, getting, if Carberry gets good quality ball, particularly off the line out, and they can attack with Dialinde and Chris Farrell, Conway, Earls, Haley, well, they have the ability to trouble Leinster in that final. But set piece is first and foremost on. They've got to get that right, and that's an area that really needs to improve in the next few weeks.
It's probably not the easiest thing in the world when Olsen Delan and Gavin Thornbury are out there trying to disrupt it. Like, we've obviously seen Delan in the Green of Ireland quite a few times at this point. Thornbury's 27 at this point, I think, Alan. Like, is there a future in the Ireland team for him?
Well, you know what? I've watched this guy now all season and last season, and I think that there's definitely potential. I think he's over 6'8". He's 120 kilos. He's mobile. He's agile. I think he's probably a bit of a late developer when you say he's 27, but
second rows can go to 40 though, Alan. So this is only the start of his career.
Yeah. Well, I think he definitely has potential to go up to the next level. You'd love to see him really be a dominant force and be really a big bruiser. He has that physicality. I think if you can get a guy like him involved with Ireland and he can take the step up, he has that size and physicality and that presence. It's just about doing it at a level above, really, and being really dominant figure and imposing figure as a big second row. But his performance the other night was very, very impressive, and I think it's something for Andy Friend to think about, Paul O'Connell to think about getting him in, getting him involved, and seeing if he can take the step up.
There's a bunch of players who played at the weekend who are kind of in that category where they're just a little bit outside of the reckoning for an Ireland squad. And maybe if there'd been a complete change of coaching ticket, you would have seen the coaches cycle through these players a bit more and give them time and give them some exposure. Like Mike Haley was on the fringe of squads, has kind of been talked about in that role before. Scott Penny, another couple of tries, man of the match again. Performance from him, like one of the highest try-scoring back rows in Europe at the moment. There's no real talk of these guys actually being in Ireland squads or stepping up and getting a chance at the moment, is there?
Mike Haley hasn't been consistently good enough. He's had glimpses in matches, and his aerial ability is very good. I think the try he scored the other night. We don't see enough of that. We don't see enough of the line breaks. We don't see enough of a real intensity to his game. He's a very, very talented player. But I think he gives you a few nerves at times with some of his decision making. And the fundamentals of being a rock solid fullback at times aren't there. He's multi-talented. I just think if he becomes more resolute in doing the basics really, really well and adds a little bit more to that attacking game that we know he has. That was a wonderful try, the way he took the ball in the air, accelerated through the tackle and the chip over the top and try. He can do that, but I think it's consistency. At times, it's about an understanding of the game as well and putting the ball into touch at times, doing the simple things really well. I think there was a penalty Cardiff had last week. They had a long-range penalty to take the lead. It dropped short under the post. Mike Haley catches it and I just think if I was out in the field, I'm saying to him, put it into touch. Just make sure your touch. They've just missed a penalty. Slow the game down, control the tempo. He kicks it long down the field, stays in play. Cardiff run back and they get another penalty. It's just adding pressure, and you just think it's that decision making that needs to be better for him. But look, he has that ability. I think he's been, was called into the Irish squad a couple of times, and it's just doing it at the top level and doing it consistently. You mentioned Scott Penny there. I think he's an incredible player. He has that ability, and he's kind of like, what's happened to Gavin Coombs. I think he needs to play in European games, which is always a tall order with Leinster because they've so much depth in the back row. Doing it in the Pro 14 is different than doing it in Europe. And I think if you end up playing in those, starting for Leinster in those European games, well, then the step up becomes a little bit easier, and he grabs the attention of the selectors. But he's a fantastic player. Scott Penny, and me talking about Mike Haley there, he has that ability to do that as well, to play, but it's just consistency and doing it in the big games, in European games, and grabbing the attention and the limelight.
One player who looks like it's only a matter of time before he gets a run of games for Ireland is Robert Balogun. A brilliant try in the first half for Ulster against Leinster on Saturday night, and he's been spoken about on the show for the last couple of months. Actually, he's having a really good season.
Well, he's an incredible athlete. He was injured for a while on, but he's one of these guys again that you think he has that little bit of X factor, that special ability. He's big, he's athletic, he's quick. So again, it's just about getting a run of games for him and finishing off the season well for Ulster. It was incredibly disappointing for them. It just shows the depth of Leinster again and the intensity they were able to bring to the game the other night, and no panic when they were under pressure. When they were down to 13 men, they were down 12-3, and you just get the sense of the good teams. And look, Ulster in that revolving kind of building process to try and get to that kind of consistency and that level of calmness and ruthlessness, and Leinster had it the other night. They didn't panic in any way, and I know the sending off for Ulster changes the game a bit, but Leinster were ruthless, and I think that was a big setback for Ulster because they probably close to their strongest team out. They're missing a couple of their internationals, but obviously Leinster are missing way more. They needed a desperation to win the game, and it was all going well at 12-3, and Leinster completely changed the game, and they just changed gears and showed that ruthlessness that's required. But every time Balogun gets the ball, he excites, and hopefully he's someone that can come through and have a big impact for Ireland. I think he has. I'd be really excited about him as a player.
Stockdale obviously played and has been first choice any time he's been available, really, for Ireland. His try-scoring record is second to none. And if we're going to do business in tournaments down the road, you kind of want Jacob Stockdale playing. Do you take him out of the firing line for a little while and just let him get his confidence back and say, look, it's fine, we know what you can do? Or do you rush him straight back into the team for the last two games of the Six Nations?
It's hard to rush him back in. I think he played well the other night and he showed glimpses of what he can do. He's an incredibly talented player going forward, and defensively he was better as well, and he put in some good hits, and it's just igniting that passion within the guy and doing that just on a regular basis, I think, and you'd love to see him angry. You can't just press the switch and get guys to be like that when it's not in their kind of persona. But I wouldn't be rushing him back in and say he's got to start against Scotland. I think if he plays, if he's out of the team for a while, it won't do him any harm. I think he's very, very important for Ireland going forward, Ger, and someone who has that bit of brilliance that can win matches for you and add to your attack. So I don't think he'll be involved or starting against Scotland. You never know. I think the coaches would have watched that game the other night, but when you're on the receiving end of a big loss like that, I think if Ulster were winning that game and Jacob Stockdale is scoring a couple of tries and making lots of line breaks, well, then that argument is stronger. But I don't think that'll happen in the next couple of weeks.
What do you do, Alan, if you're looking at this few weeks ahead with Six Nations straight into the Pro 14 final, into the Heineken Cup? Navigating that is a tricky one. Like, is there a hard and fast rule in terms of which is going to be prioritised from a Munster and Leinster standpoint?
Yeah, it's a hard one on. Obviously, the provincial coaches, Leo Cullen and Johan van Graan, don't have any control of what happens with Ireland. And the priority is to try and win those last two games for Andy Farrell. And it just depends what way the players come back to their provinces. Integrating them after playing England at the end of the Six Nations and putting them straight back into a Pro 14 final is going to be tricky. I suspect they'll try and play their strongest hand there and maybe rotate or change a little bit maybe for the European game, the last 16 game, and hopefully they can get through that. It just depends. Maybe they'll play a couple one week and not the next week. So it's very, very difficult, and it's an incredibly busy number of weeks for the internationals then to come out of Six Nations and to be looking at a huge final for them the week after, which, Leinster have won this so many times in the last number of years. And Munster, it's 2011 since they won a trophy. So there's probably more of a need for Munster to go with their full hand. And we've seen Leinster in the last couple of years in semi-finals and finals rotate their squad and not play some of their internationals and still win those games. So I think it's probably a little bit easier for Leo Cullen with the depth he has. I think Johan van Graan will, weigh up his options and probably look to try and play all these internationals for that final if he can.
Getting one over in Leinster is really important.
Well, winning a trophy on is really important. They haven't won one in 10 years. So I think if there's a glimmer of hope and a slight little bit of vulnerability in Leinster in their selection, even though that may not be the case, but if you have a couple of your internationals not playing for Leinster and Munster have a chance, I think he's got to try and play him if he can. But who knows? This will be dictated by how the players feel and what kind of involvement they have in the next couple of weeks. But it's a tricky one for both coaches, no doubt about it.
Would you make many changes for Scotland if you're in the Ireland camp off the back of the Italy performance and having seen how well and the confidence that comes from that? It was only Italy, and we can say now Italy are rubbish. They have been, and even the questions about their continued existence in the tournament get louder and louder year on year. So you don't want to invest in that result, but at the same time, professional sport and confidence, it's so fragile and it's so important and it's so fickle that if a team has confidence, you will be very tempted not to make too many changes.
Yeah, there won't be too many changes there, and I think the makeup of the team and the team that started against Italy, I like that, and I think Rhys Ruddock is probably the one that can feel hard done by not having any involvement, and you saw the performance of him again at the weekend, how good he can be, and I think he was unfortunate, but having Tadhg Beirne in the team and the way he's played this season is probably very important to Ireland. So I think he'll probably start at 6. Dave Kilcoyne was putting a bit of pressure on Cian Healy to start. I think Healy will start. Depends on how Ronan Kelleher is as well with the Rob Herring one. But I don't see many changes. I think the impact off the bench is going to be very, very important. So there might be one or two changes from the starting team that played against Italy, but more overall it'll be pretty similar to that game. And, of course, it is only Italy, and confidence is very important to this team, and some of the attack was really good. They'll have to figure out a strategy to play against Scotland and try and deny them the ball and take away that high tempo, aggressive style that Scotland has shown in the Six Nations. They've been, they were very unlucky against Wales. The sending off was significant, and they're kind of flying high at the moment, and that's the way they'll be feeling, that they'll really feel that they can go after Ireland here. So Ireland are on the back foot and will be underdogs going to Murrayfield. The record has been good there, and all our Irish players have won there over the years, in recent years. So I think it'll be pretty much the same selection for the Scottish game from that Italy selection.
It seems there's a nice bit of pressure on Scotland going into this one, Alan, because stylistically Ireland have managed to beat Scotland up at times over the past few years, and Scotland have tried to play a good brand of rugby and it hasn't got them over the line in these games against Ireland. They kind of need to do both. They need to play good rugby and beat Ireland this weekend.
Yeah, they do, and then obviously the game against France being called off won't have helped them. It'll be probably 3 or 4 weeks before since they played a game, so that may be a telling factor in the end. But they're probably sick of Ireland beating them in Pro 14 and at international level. So they'll be, they'll really fancy their chances, here with Ireland coming to Murrayfield. But on the flip side of that, Ireland won't be daunted by the fact, but Scotland were incredible in Twickenham in the opening game. The tempo and the aggression they brought to that game. So it'll be a spiky affair, I'd imagine, and it will be down to who imposes themselves physically. And if Scotland get enough ball, I think Redpath in the centre has been brilliant for him. Stuart Hogg. We know the dangers they have. Finn Russell can win or lose a game for you. He's incredibly talented. So it's about putting pressure on their talented players and their back row. Hamish Watson, Jamie Ritchie, these are guys who can really upset the flow of the opposition. So it's an intriguing game, and it's one that will excite. But there's, if Ireland can get through this one, then they can look forward to England and really throw the kitchen sink at that last one and go into that game with confidence. But they're still vulnerable, Ireland, and we don't know where they're at. Really, are they back? Are they making progress?
These two games are going to decide that. Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah, they are going to decide that. So it's a tough game for them. It's a tough game going to Murrayfield.
Would you start Conor Murray?
No, because I think he's been out for a number of weeks, and I think Gibson Park has played well, and I think he's games under his belt. So I think Murray maybe could be on the bench. I probably wouldn't start him because of the fact that he's been out for a number of weeks.
Okay, fair enough. Alan, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.